Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel 21 Hunting and Fishing. I really appreciate you watching. This is a show where just an average guy tells you about things that he's done. It's nothing fancy. I am not a licensed captain. I am not a licensed guide. I'm just a 9 to 5er who likes to get out there and catch his own food, shoot his own food. And I think there's just so much out there to discover in this channel. We talk about anything from fishing long range trips in the Pacific to fishing trout to shooting dove to shooting moose. And if that sounds interesting to you, please like and subscribe. So, what are we going to talk about today? Today, we're going to talk about grunion. What the heck is a grunion? First, it's really great bait and it's fun to go and catch. I had no idea that grunion existed even a few years ago. They are just native to Southern California and the Baja, and they will charge the beach, as you'll see, and to spawn. And you can grab them for bait, and it only happens at night, so you get to plan around their schedule. It's a lot of fun. So let's get into it. All right. So grunion, what are they? They're essentially a smelt. They are part of the jack smelt, top smelt family. Their range extends from Point Conception, California, all the way down to Baja. They're occasionally found further north or further south of that, but they inhabit the nearshore waters only to a depth of about 60 feet, and they don't migrate apparently. You're allowed to take 30 by hand, and you need a fishing license if you're 16 or older. So you're not allowed to use nets or dig holes or anything like that. But that doesn't matter because, as you'll see in some photos, once they charge the beach, you can't get away from them. You're walking on these things. Most of them in Southern California between 5 and 6 inches long, some as long as 7, and an average male, for example, is about 4.5 inches. Okay, so as I was mentioning before, there's a certain run of these grunions. They look they run at low and high tides, that full and new moon. So those are the astronomical tides. Those are when your tides swings are the greatest, and they run for 4 consecutive nights. You can find the full detailed schedule on the California Department of Fish and Wildlife website. It says dates and times of the expected run, start and ends. And that's not, they can run before, they can run after that. Um, they run for about 2, 3 hours, something like that, up to 4 hours. It all kind of depends. And some people say that second hour of or the second half of that run is the best. But I don't know. I've kind of seen it all ways. I've been skunked. I've seen them start before the expected run, but basically it has to be at night. And the way the tides work is, say the first night starts at 10 p.m., then the second night is going to start at like 10:45, and then the third night is going to start at about 11:30 at night. So, if you're going to plan your grunion hunts accordingly, right? If you have to work the next day or what have you. Um, this year in 2025, they're going to start running on March 14th. I think it is. It's that Friday in March, and that's perfect because it's you, you don't have to worry about waking up the next day. Where do they run? They like to run where the sand is softer. So where sand will flow around river mouths, around pylons, and anywhere where the water is moving. They will run in the wide open beach, but because the way the females they bury themselves vertically in the sand, And it's pretty amazing to see. They kind of just back right in and they vibrate, and the females are sticking straight vertical, and the males will wrap themselves around the females and release their milt, and you'll see one female with basically as many males around her as they can fit. The schedule, it opens in March, so mid-March, as I just mentioned. You can grab them. It's closed in April, May, and June, and then it opens up again in July and August. They say this is to protect the breeding season, but the whole reason why they're on the beach in the first place is to breed. So um, basically, that's the only reason why they come up onto the beach. Fish love to eat them. They're a great bait. Halibut love them. And let's go to the next slide. So here's a quick photo. Sorry, it's not the greatest. iPhones don't take the greatest pictures at night, I guess. I think it was on my older phones. You can see just like the density. And this is just one part of the beach, and they can get more than this. And you on the really good nights, you can look up and down the beach, and this is they're just carpeting the beach. And like I mentioned before, they're great bait. People eat them, I guess. I've never eaten them. I have seen people, at least the game wardens posting on their website and bagging people that eat them, like coolers full of these things. Again, you're only allowed to keep 30 at a time. Um, there's really not too many cons to using this as a bait. They are great dead bait. That's what makes them great. They can fall off the hook if they're not hooked pretty well, but you hook them basically through the head. They have like a hard spot on the head. And when I was using these calico fishing one day, I noticed that when they're in the water, uh, again, the fish are used to eating them dead. They just have this shimmer to them that I think really attracts the fish. And the water was really clear that day, and you could see the calico bass just kind of swimming around it. They immediately saw it and was interested in these grunion. So here's a picture of a shovel-nosed shark I caught at Moonlight Beach, I believe it was, during a grunion run. You don't see any grunion in this photo, but essentially all these fish coming up, all these grunion coming up onto the shore, it brings in all these predator uh, fish. The shovel nose love grunion, halibut love them. I can virtually guarantee you a shovel nose shark, if you take a grunion to a particular place, reach out to me and I'll tell you, and just throw it in the water and let it sit. One day I was at this beach and I was leopard shark fishing, and I was casting my leopard shark reel setup as far out as I could, probably using a yellowfin croaker or barred surf perch. And on my lighter line, I would cast it not far really at all, and just put it in the sand spike. And I couldn't even tend the leopard shark reel. I kept catching shovel nose sharks, and you can eat these things. I've never had it. Um, I'll try anything once, but it's fun if you just want to catch and pull on something. Um, yeah, these things are absolutely love the the old grunion. All right, so what do you do once you get home to take care of your grunion? All I do is I just dry them off and I'll vacuum seal them in packs of 10. And you can kind of see it here. You lay them head to tail, very flat. And here's why you lay them flat, is because when you go to use them, it is much easier to thaw out. One time I had just a big kind of ball of grunion, and it just takes a lot longer to thaw out. And yeah, these are great bait. Use them dead. As I already mentioned, you hook them through the hard part of the head. Calico bass and halibut love them. One day I took some of these with a buddy of mine, and we were using, I think, man, what do we have? I think we had sardines. We had a bunch of sardines. We were at the kelp beds outside of Oceanside, and we were catching calicos. But then I started using these things, and I only had 19. I had 19 left. I remember that number, and we were catching 2 or 3 calico per Grunion. It was pretty unreal. Then we were cutting them up in chunks. And again, I think it's just like the shine or the sheen of their skin or something. It just seemed like really flashy in the water. And it was great. That day, there was a sport boat that anchored up probably 200 yards away from us. And we checked the fish count, and I think they caught this same number. They had about 10x the number of guys that we had on our boat, just 2 of us, and they caught the same number of calicos. So these things are awesome bait. You can eat them, like I mentioned before. I don't know how they taste because I would rather use them as bait. And I just love the satisfaction of catching my own bait. I feel like that's just part of the adventure of hunting and fishing. And not to mention, it's cheaper, right? If you fish a lot, your bait's it's gonna get pricey, and so this is just a fun way to reduce the cost, I suppose, of fishing. So here's a quick video. As you can see, the thumbnail is vertical, and you maybe you can tell, but that that was like a hard packed sand before, but once the grunion get on the beach, it almost turns it into like a mud. And you'll get home and you'll have little specks of sand, muddy sand, kind of all over you because they're flopping around and kicking up sand onto you. And sometimes you get these things home and you put it after you have them in a bag. They're still trying to spawn in the bag, or at least they died trying because there's milk and eggs everywhere. I've thought about how to save the grunion eggs and use those somehow. I don't know, but here they are. I was just trying to get a video of the female, uh, what they do, and you can see the male right around the females. This was a much longer video than so that's pretty cool. You will see a lot of people walking the beach and just shining lights everywhere. If there's if the grunion aren't on the beach yet, do not shine lights because they like a nice dark area, right? They're doing this at night. They're trying to avoid land-based predators too. Raccoons will come out and start eating these grunion. And what they will do is they will stage basically somewhere out in the surf line, and they'll send what they call a couple scouts out. And the scouts will come out, they'll come onto the beach, they'll flop around, and then a wave will come and just all of a sudden they disappear. You really have to be patient. In the next 5-10 minutes or so, that's when they'll start coming. It's like the scouts tell the rest of the fish that, hey guys, it's safe, you can come out, it's start spawning, and it's game on. At that point, it's hard to tell. They just kind of come in waves, and you will scare them away. I was at Moonlight Beach one night, and they were really really thick, and I'm sitting there trying to grab them, and I noticed I looked to my left about 10 yards and to my right about 10 yards, and they all went away. But beyond that 10 yards on either side of me, it was thick. So then I moved away, and they came back to where I was standing. And so you can scare them. But once they get pretty confident, like you see here, if I stood there with the light, they're all going to go away. But you can catch the video and the light pretty quickly, and um, they eventually, when they're really as sort of honed in on spawning as they can, yeah, they're probably a little bit less skittish, but um, it's not a huge deal. Just try not to disturb them for no reason. Grab them, fish, and yeah, it's great. On like the thickest nights, I'll be standing in the surf and I can just feel them hitting my ankles as I'm casting out. And always keep in mind too that the grunting on the end of your line counts towards your bag limit. So if you have 30 in the bag and one on the end of your line, that's 31. Game warden could ticket you for that. I've never been stopped. One other thing you need to think about is where you're what beach you're at. There are some city ordinances that say you can't be on the beach at past a certain time. It's never really been a problem for me. One time I took my son and we were out at Moonlight Beach, and the neighbors called in noise complaints because there's like fire pits there or whatever. So the police showed up and they had to clear out the beach, but the officer was obviously just sitting there with my son. I tell him, yeah, the Grunion were coming, and he was really cool about it. He's like, hey, listen, I need to tell you to leave, but I'm also not coming back to check. And he was more concerned about kicking out the folks that were, I guess, making the noise. So just be careful of where you are. Yes, be mindful of the city ordinances or whatever. But all in all, I really don't think you're going to get in that much trouble. The most they'll do is just tell you to leave the beach. Probably the only way you really get in trouble during a Grunion run is if you're breaking law uh, somehow. So, and yeah, keep that in mind. If you're even going to touch a Grunion, you have to have a fishing license. And you can't touch them at all during the closed seasons. So here's a picture of me with a halibut. Now, eagle's eyes out there know that that's not a legal one. I had to throw it back. 22 inches is legal halibut. But yeah, as I mentioned, these things love grunion. Why do halibut love grunion? Because if they're good dead bait, grunion are pretty lazy fish. They just lay there and wait for something to swim by it. They ambush it and then they go back to just laying there. And that's their shit. So a bait like grunion is awesome to use, just floating by their head. They will almost always eat it. And here's just a picture of a bag I picked up to reuse. It's waterproof. Just throw the grunny in. That's not 30. I don't know how many that is. I think that's the night I caught about 19 or so. I could have got more, but I didn't want to think it wasn't a very thick run. And I just kept thinking that the ones that are on the beach were scouts, and so I didn't want to mess with them too much. But it is what it is. That I think that's the day I got the 19 grunion that I later used that turned into more than 19 calicos because again we were using them more than once. We were cutting them up, and they were still getting bit. All right, so that's it. You learned. I hope you learned something about grunion. I hope you get out there and catch some. They're great bait. If you decide to eat them, let me know how they taste. I'll be curious to know. Another thing, take a kid. I've seen so many kids out there with their fathers, typically walking up and down the beach, and it's an amazing thing to see just the nature of it as well. Uh, what else did we learn today? The open season is March, July, and August, and the closed seasons are April, May, and June. It's 30 bag limit, so don't take more. You can use them dead multiple times, freeze them in a nice, if you don't have a vacuum sealer, just in a regular Ziploc bag is fine. Again, and when you're done with them, just throw them back in the freezer. Thank you guys for stopping by 21 Hunting and Fishing. And please, if you think this was educational or entertaining, like and subscribe and let your friends know if they're into hunting and fishing. See ya.